Good afternoon. I'm sorry for my absence recently. I'm not sure if you can hear. I'm still a little bit sick. I'm trying to recover. I went to the rig, and I think between working just with the work that I've been doing and working nights, my immune system got run down a little bit, and I got sick. Um, I'm healing up. I'll be in good shape here within a day or two. You can see I got kind of a coat on today. It's typically this temperature would be just fine for me, but today it's a little chilly for me just because I'm not feeling great. Still have a little fever and that kind of thing. Nonetheless, let's get moving forward again. um, Today is going to be kind of not really a recap, but just in addition to my part one of getting started with cattle at your homestead. There were several things that I had given you for numbers and information, and I'm going with a specific path forward with the entire thing. Um, but I wanted to let you know my plan for the information was to go with cows, bred cows. The reason for that is because each year you get a calf. Each year you can keep one, then you can sell off some of the calves, and that will kind of recoup your money throughout as you continue to go, and hopefully at some point be a profitable um, and have money to make different decisions. So that's the reason I went with the outline that I went with. If you just go with steers, then obviously you can keep one, and then if you pay for a lot of feed, and then you sell them. You may make some money, you may not make some money. So I went with something. What I'm doing is I went with a plan so that each year you should be able to get some calves. You can save one for your freezer, and then from there, however you do it is completely up to you. So the reason I'm kind of recapping is because I want you to know that there is no one way of getting involved in cattle. There are there are thousands of ways that you can mix and match or however you want to do it. You're only limited by your own imagination. There are people that just deal with steers, buying steers at a young age, 350, 450 pounds, feeding them out, keeping one, selling off the other steers, then purchasing back into another group of small steers. There are people that just go with bulls, raising bulls, and using them as breeding stock for other people who need bulls, different things like that. There are people that just go with heifers. They start just with heifers. The, Literally, some people just go with bulls as rough stock, as bucking bulls. I mean, there's unlimited ways you can go about getting started with cattle. Again, my reasoning for going with bred cows was because it'll get you started first um, without a bull to start with. So you'll start with cows that have already been bred. So that's a benefit and a start already to what you're getting going. Um, and so that was kind of my primary reasoning for what I'm discussing, and I'm going to continue moving forward with that. I just want you to know that there thousands of ways. Literally, you can mix and match however you want to do and whatever works best for you. Part two of getting started with cattle on your homestead is going to be primarily about a working corral, working pens, equipment that's going to be necessary, and that kind of thing to get you started with a good foundation for equipment to work with your cows. Um, Here's another thing that I will point out is that there is no one way to do this either. Everybody's got their own specific likes and dislikes. Some people want a just one large corral and an alley. Some people want to split a corral in two sections. Some people want a bud box. There again, you're only limited to your imagination. The thing that I will point out is that I wouldn't pardon me. I wouldn't I wouldn't dig and put in posts to start with. I would start with corrals or corral panels, and I would just use T posts to drive those in and secure those for a temporary starting point. You may decide to go with say a 36 by 36 corral with a couple of gates, and you may find that that works fantastic for you. And that's somewhat of what I'm going to just give as an example. But you may find that that's too big, too wide, too narrow, whichever way you want to go about it. And you may decide that for your land, for your situation, for the area you're working with, between a barn, the house, the shop, terrain, whatever it may be, you may find that, well, it doesn't work that well for you. Um, so the information I'm giving you is that when you get started, the first time you put something up, just use T-posts. Secure it, make sure it's secure, because when cattle getting pushed, um, it's 12 or 1,500 pounds that can really move and bend some equipment. So put some T-posts in, secure it, make sure it's solid, um, work with it. And if you decide that no, something else is going to work better for you, then you have the option of moving forward and changing it a couple more times. You may decide 3 or 4 times later that, okay, you finally got something figured out, that this is what works best for you. And it's important that you're able to do that, because um, no one setup works for everyone. And I advise again, to many of the people who build panels and provide panels have um, prefab corrals and working setups and that kind of thing. Um, they're expensive, and they may work very well if you've got a large operation or whatever. They may work very well. I'm not sure. What I will say is that I don't know. I've worked with 100 people around my area right here, and no one has the exact same setup, because for every situation, someone else thinks something works better for them. And I think that that's important for you to know. In my in the examples that I'm going to be giving in the next part of this series, I'm going to be pricing out panels that are new. The reason I'm doing that is, you may move to an area purchasing your homestead and you don't really know anyone. So with that, if you don't have corrals that are already in place, you're going to have to go to some place like a Tractor Supply or something like that. In doing so, you're going to have to purchase new panels and different things. In the example, I'm using railroad ties, and I'm using 6 foot heavier. They're not extremely heavy panels, but they're the heavier panels. And with those panels, what I'm envisioning is just setting up 3 panels on each side, basically creating a excuse me, creating a square that is 36 by 36, and then using one of those as a gate section. And then I actually have the price of a gate itself that'll kind of lead to an alley or a lead up or whatever. Um, if you know someone who has older panels that they want to get rid of, many times I'll see something on a local Facebook page that people are selling panels or whatever. If you can get some used panels that are still in good condition, I highly recommend taking advantage of that. Even if you're getting, even if you've already purchased something else and you can come across a couple of additional panels, it's always a good idea to have a few extra panels laying around. You never know what you're going to need, or how you can use them. Panels like baling twine and duct tape are things that we never have too much of. So you'll find they come in handy for all kinds of things. And I do have some notes today. I'm trying to make sure I cover all my bases here. I also, as I said, I'm the example I'm giving, I'm talking about purchasing new panels. Additionally, I'm talking about railroad ties, using those for your posts to secure the panels. Once you figured out, yep, this is the system that works for me, then you can start laying out where you want either good fence posts or railroad ties. The reason I chose railroad ties is because I know that locally here we can get good solid railroad ties for about $7 a piece. Um, those have already been treated. They've been treated to last a very long time, and once you get those in the ground and set, they are solid. They're good and solid. Use if you're going with like a fence post type setup, I would go with the good 6-inch posts rather than the small 3 or 4 inch posts, because like I said, cattle, if they get pushed too hard, they can really knock some stuff over and break things. It's a 1,200 pound cow is extremely solid, and if they are feeling pressed or pressured or um, chased, they can really knock some stuff down. You'll be surprised. They can break fence posts. They can bend a panel in half and that kind of thing. And that's one of the reasons that I discuss kind of working with your cattle on a regular basis, becoming comfortable with them and letting them become comfortable with you, because by doing so, you can avoid a lot of these different headaches just by having them being calm and being familiar with you and you being familiar with them. So again, in my example, I use railroad ties and new corral panels, 12-foot panels. But that doesn't mean that you have to use that. If you've got, for some reason, you purchased a homestead and the previous owner had a whole bunch of lumber, 2x6s, 2x8s, 2x10s, just piled up out in the back section there, and it's salvageable and manageable, you can absolutely use whatever materials you have. If you do use lumber, I would highly recommend that you treat it, because it's going to be in the weather all the time, 100%. Pardon me. So ensure that you treat it. You're going to have more support, because even though a 2x8 or a 2x10 is really solid to us, again, to a 1200, 13, 14, 1500 pound animal, it's going to flex and break pretty easily. You'll be surprised. Um, but if you can come across used panels, or you have some lumber or access to materials like that, absolutely use whatever you have. Um, the information I'm giving you is basically purchasing everything brand new, prime cows, prime bred cows, prime equipment, good railroad ties, good panels, and all of that. I want you to go in knowing that um, the price right now for brand new for everything is going to be whatever we end up with here at the total at the end. I don't have that information right in front of me. I'm trying to get outside and get a little fresh air, but so that's kind of what I'm trying to set you up for is, if you were to have to purchase everything brand new, this is what it's going to cost. One of the biggest reasons I have used panels for an example is because they're really easy to move. If you decide that this 36 by 36 square is not going to function for you and you want it to be, like I say, 12 foot wide and, I don't know, 100 feet long, the panels are super easy to move. You pull a couple pins, move them, and you can set it up in a hexagon, a circle, rectangle, or in any manner of different shapes and sizes, and whatever works best for you. So they're super easy to move and set up for yourself. Whereas if you get lumber and that kind of thing, you spend a lot of time putting it together, drilling holes, driving lags, getting it set up, and then you find out it doesn't function the way you thought it was going to, or you worked with somebody else and they had a different idea and you really like this one idea they have. It takes a lot to disassemble everything you put together, pull posts if you've got to pull posts, re-drill, move everything, dig more holes, and that kind of thing. So that's the reason I went with panels. But again, there is no one perfect setup. What I would recommend is that when you're setting up to begin with, I'm pointing out a 36 by 36 square. But what I would do personally is I would divide that in half, so that I have one section. I can keep all the cows in one end, and then I can kind of sort off. Say I've got 5 steer calves that I want to work separately, or 5 bull calves that I want to band individually, or something like that. You can kind of work them and work them into the other half of your corral setup, and then you can work them individually. It gives you the ability to kind of open and close a gate and separate others and work them individually as you require, as you're working them. Um, you'll want, if you keep just the 5 cows and you're going to keep all the calves or whatever, it may not be too difficult for you to keep just the square. But you'll find that it's much easier as you get moving forward to have kind of 2 working pins side by side. You move everything in your 5 cows and 5 calves. You can sort off your calves. You can medicate them, or treat them, or band or brand, or whatever you need individually, and then you can either load them or you can do whatever is required with them at that point, and you're not having to deal with the cows at the same time. So I do recommend having kind of the two sections of whatever area you're going to be working in. For the examples I'm giving, as I said, I'm just describing a 36 by 36 square, kind of sectioned in half, and then having the two working areas, and then just an alley or lead up into a working head gate at that point. Um, what I would do, pardon me, what I would do is get on the internet and just research um, cattle corrals or corrals for cattle, working pins for cattle. There are thousands of different setups, thousands of different ideas. Go on YouTube. There are hundreds of different ideas of what people do to set up different corrals or different working pins or whatever it may be. Um, I would highly recommend that you look at some of these because in the YouTube videos they're going to each individual owner or whoever has the post is going to explain why they have the specific setup that they have for their cows. And so you may think, you know, hey, that's a good idea, or that makes sense to me. That's logical. Or you may decide that, you know, well, they just did that because they had lumber that was, you know, 6 foot long, and so they made a whatever, you know. Um, look through several of them, come up with different ideas, and see what works best for you, and take away whatever you want to take away with. What I do recommend, like I said, is at first I wouldn't dig holes and set posts. I would use T-posts to start with, secure them, but I wouldn't dig posts and then set it up because sure enough, you're going to think, boy, I really wish I'd have done this a little differently. So I'm trying to save you a little wear and tear on your back. It, I've done, I've dug a lot of post holes, so I'd avoid that if I can until I'm sure that this is the setup I want. One thing to note about your cattle is invariably the first time you work your cattle through your system, whether that be, like I said, a rectangle bud box, whatever type of corral system or working pins that you set up, the first time that you work your animals through a system, it's going to go rough. The cows and the animals are unfamiliar with the setup. They don't know where they're supposed to go. They don't know what they're supposed to do. Um, they're going to be difficult, and they're going to be um, nervous. They're like I say, they're not going to know what you expect of them. If you have something that you've figured out, okay, this kind of works, 2 or 3 times down the road, you know, you're starting to separate cows or whatever. The cows are going to start figuring out the system. Okay, I go here, I go there. From there, I go in the alley, and they do figure these things out. So the more you work them through your system, the easier things are going to get. Um, you'll also find that on days that you have more time, that say you get there at 10 o'clock in the morning, it's a beautiful day, everything's great, and you have all day to do it. Those days, you're going to find that the cows and the entire system goes much smoother than they would on days that say you get there at 4:30 in the afternoon, you're behind, you were doing something else, and now you've only got 2 hours before it gets dark, and you got to get them worked through there. Your lack of time is going to create a nervous type energy within you. Your patience isn't going to be at its best level. And what's going to happen is the animals are going to sense that. They're going to get nervous. They're going to be a little less um, the, tolerable. They're going to be a little more unruly because they're picking up your lack of patience for them. So the best thing you can do is go in, you know, even if you've got 5 cows and it shouldn't take more than an hour, I would absolutely try to do it in the morning and have nothing planned for the rest of the day. Take your time, take as long as it takes. Don't rush them. Don't try to, you know, hurry the situation. Be patient, work with them, and generally you'll find that things go so much smoother if you do that. Also, as I've mentioned numerous times in other videos, is taking the time to spend with the animals. Get them in the corral. When I would, if it were me, my first time working with cattle, and I just purchased these cattle, I would already have my corral set up if I could. If I could, I would get home. I would put the cows in that corral, and I would close them in. I would obviously feed and water in there, and every day I would try to spend, you know, half hour, an hour minimum in the corral, not shooing them around or chasing them around or anything, but just slowly walking in the corral, whether that be on the exterior to start with, and as you become more familiar with them and they become more familiar with you, you can start moving and working more with the animals themselves. Cattle have what and horses, large animals have what we would call like a balance point. If I were to walk into a corral and there was a animal broadside against the corral panel there, if I'm just about lined up on its center, on its belly right there, that animal is going to kind of hold right there. If I literally were to take, say it's right here, if I were to take a step to the right, that animal is going to move to my left because I've now created pressure on this side. So it's going to move away from that pressure. Again, if I had it centered up here and I took a step to the left, that animal is going to move to the right, away from me and away from that pressure. When I say pressure, I'm not actually physically touching the animal or doing anything like that. It is just how herd animals work. If pressure for some animals may be 100 yards. If I start walking toward an animal that's very, I'll say rank or unruly or whatever, if I get out there and they're 100 yards off, they may turn tail and just take off. Obviously, mine aren't like that. You've seen that, and that's because I've spent a lot of time with them, obviously. But most of the time, as you get closer, you'll find, okay, this is kind of that animal's pressure. At this point, whether that be 20 feet or 20 yards, this is where the animal begins to get uncomfortable. You'll see them, they're turning their head, they're putting their ears, they'll start shifting their ears, they're wondering what's going on, are you coming to get them or whatever. You'll see them start moving their feet a little bit. Um, that will become the point that, okay, this animal starts feeling pressure at 20 yards. And these are things that you need to just start understanding, just gradually walking around the corral, working with the animals themselves, and starting to understand. Um, each animal is going to have its own unique personality and characteristics. Like I said, some will take off at 100 yards, and some of them you've seen. You've seen some of mine. They'll come up and they're licking my arm, for crying out loud, or they're rubbing on me because they want me to scratch them or they want cookies or whatever. So each animal has got their own unique characteristics and personality. So it's just something you'll have to learn with your animals. But I highly recommend, when you get your cattle, put them in your corral, walk out there with them every day, spend a little time. Um, I've got a couple of videos showing as well that I would get a small bucket of grain. They make tubs that are about, I don't know, 14, 16 inches, and they're about 4 inches deep. I'd put a coffee can of grain in there and just rattle it, make some noise with it, because what they're going to do is they're going to associate you, they're going to associate the noise of the grain and the bag, and they're going to associate later that you've set this down, you back off, they can come up and they can get that grain or the pellets or whatever it may be, and they're going to associate all three of these things together with you. Over time, you'll find that you'll set it down and be able to stand there, and they'll come right up to it. You've seen mine. They're trying to get the grain before, or the pellets before I can even get it into the tubs. Um, so every day, if you do this, you're going to build a relationship of trust with your animals. First, you're going to know, okay, wait a minute, mine are a little bit pushy. Mine are a little bit pushy. So if I'm out there trying to put pellets down, they'll come and push on me and rub on me, trying to get to a little bit of the pellets. Um, Yours will probably not be that way to start with. They'll probably stand off. You set the tub down. You've got some pellets in it, and you back off, and a little bit over time, they'll come and investigate and find out what it is. If you do this for a month, 40 days, 45 days, something like that, every day when you go out there, you put a coffee can in there and rattle that a little bit, they're going to gradually start coming towards you and toward the corral wherever you enter into the corral. They're going to be moving closer and closer to you because there's become a relationship of trust between you. Just one more note on finding that balance point with your animals. Many times on the YouTube channels, I will see, and again, everybody's got their own methods, their own techniques, and all of that. I've seen a lot of really rank animals where guys are literally having to hop over corral panels and that kind of thing, because a bull calf is big enough to chase them now, and that kind of thing. And I don't need that. I really don't. But many times what I will see is I will see people applying too much pressure, unnecessary pressure to their animals. If you're trying to get now, I'm going to step back here for a minute. If I'm trying to get a couple of steers to move through that section right there, all I'm going to do is step back. I'm going to let them get across this side right here. I'm going to move behind them somewhat. And just typically my moving behind them, even though they're 20 feet away, that should just allow them to move forward through a gate and whatever. If that's not enough, just take a step or two. Just a step or two. Don't wave your arms. Don't make a bunch of noise. It's typically not necessary. If you've kind of moved to their hind quarter and you apply a little bit of pressure, they will walk forward because they don't know what you want, but they know what they don't like. They don't like the additional pressure behind them, so they're going to move forward and away from you at that point. So this is something that I would work with in your corral when you get your cows, and that kind of thing. You can work with them. You can start figuring out these balance points, what pushes them, what doesn't. You know, get one cow, one heifer, one steer against the fence right there, and just apply a little pressure. Take a step. Is it moving? Okay, this is number ear tag 47. I don't know, whatever works for you. 47, okay. Kind of make a mental note, 47. 47 will let me move right up to it to within 10 feet. Now 123, if I come in the corral, it's on the far end of the corral, kind of pacing the corral wire, or the corral end right there, wanting to try to escape. Um, every day you spend with them, you'll take a little less off of them. They'll build a little more trust, and you'll remove some pressure from them. I always offer food as a treat to help solve some of that, because they're very much driven by their stomachs, like men, I guess. Anyway, I hope you've got something out of this. I'm going to try to get on to part two of this series. As I said, I'm going to talk about panels, head gates, uh, railroad ties, and the costs of all of that stuff. After that, my next section is going to be about veterinary supplies, medications, the different means of medicating, and the different equipment that's required to give different medications. Hope this has been helpful for you. If you got anything, if you got anything out of this, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Richie, I really appreciate your comments. Thank you guys. Have a great day.